Alright guys, thank you for joining me on this new episode of Tux Tech TV. We're sitting here questioning some things about my channel and think it's time for you guys to ultimately know why I really chose Linux. So stay tuned on Tux Tech TV. Well, thank you guys for joining me after this long sabbatical that I've been on. Unfortunately, there was a lot of situations that was occurring in my life that prevented me from making videos. But today I'm going to talk to you guys about the reasons why, I'll say 4 reasons why I actually switched to using Linux. Number 1. The freedom that you get installing Linux, not needing a key to install it, and having conditions on how many devices you could install that software on. So for instance, if I downloaded a version of Linux, because there's different variances, but if I download a variant of my choice or distro and I wanted to install it on more than 7 computers, including friends, family, and those that I own, I don't have to worry about getting a call from Microsoft or the whomever the distributor was. Well, I wouldn't worry about Microsoft because we're not talking about Microsoft. But anyway, any of the guys who develop these distributions. I mean, it's having that liberty to do that is something that I think that should be readily available for all distributions, whether it be Linux or not. Case in point, having to pay for that key and the user agreements. If you guys sit and read through these user agreements, you're giving up several of your freedoms and liberties just to use that software, and to have a developer have the ability to, for instance, this wallpaper that I have on my computer, know where did I download that wallpaper from and what type of wallpaper it is. That's none of their business. And another instance, if I choose to go to a website and download a legitimate torrent, which may be another Linux distribution or a file or some sort that or an ISO, and not have to worry about them observing my whereabouts, is something that I like to have. I am not doing anything illegal on my computer, and either way, I don't feel like it's any of their business. Because for those who disagree with me, leave your door on your house unlocked and have everybody just walk through, even when you're having intimate moments with your lady, or having fun with your kids and strangers just coming into your household and viewing everything that you do. Basically, it's the same thing that you're doing with your computer. Stop justifying the ability of these proprietary providers from doing that. It's asinine. Stop it. Alright, next is the apps. Let me just show you guys a list of apps that I have here. Let me do it this way. There's my face. Alright, here is a list of applications that I have installed. BleachBit, for instance, is It's kind of like CCleaner. You use this to clean up any packages or uh, anything that is in your system that's just utilizing unnecessary space. As you can see here, that is Bastion game. Is uh, This is a software program that you can use to actually change certain keys and program certain buttons on your Xbox controller if you have one of those connected for gaming. Anyway, Blender, for instance, everybody know what Borderlands is. The antivirus program that I have a video on, I'll leave a link to it if you're interested. Um, there's several things here. For instance, the HP driver could be downloaded as a native driver from HP, depending on the model of printer that you have, and have all of the functionality that you need. Double-side printing, photocopying, faxing, the whole nine. You could do it with this driver. I use K3B as a means of copying or backing up CDs or DVDs, and you could copy them as like an ISO file or a uncompressed file using K3B. There's also another program called Handbrake that you could use for the same functions. Video editors, I have Kdenlive. I also have OpenShot for some simple functionalities that I like about it as far as the editing. And when it comes to more in-depth stuff, I will actually switch back to Kdenlive so that I could, make other alterations. But anyway, yeah, just the list of stuff, the list goes on and on, It's everything here that I have, other than the games themselves that I paid for in Steam, everything else here is free. Everything else is free. Alright. Now, as far as the productivity cases that people have, that, would I be able to run my computer in a small office environment? Would I be able to send information via the internet? Basic stuff. People think that Linux is not capable of doing, which is it boggles my mind how people are still thinking that they're still thinking that Linux is a kernel and not being placed in a functional operating system that you could use day to day. It's beyond me that today there's people still talking about, 10 years ago I used Linux and it wasn't ready. That was 10 years ago. Stop using that as an excuse. You could go back online and research and find out what it is that has changed about the operating system that you were complaining about in the past. See if the functionality that you needed back then has been changed. I mean, for instance, I hear people all the time saying that there's certain nuances of Office and functionality of Office that they don't have on Linux, and I find that hard to believe, because when it comes to using Office programs, look at the list that I have here on the screen. Sweet Jesus. I mean, excluding the calendar. I mean, I have a contacts list that everybody that I have as like a business partner, friend, or family member, I could put on the contacts list and, be able to set up dates and times and stuff on the calendar and get alerts on my computer. I could even go as far as tying some of those functions into Evolution and, being able to get alerts on my smartphone. If I wanted to go that far, if I wanted to push it that far, I could do that. As far as the Office tools themselves, the Writer, the Excel, I mean, we have a alternative to that. We have Writer, we have Impress, which is like Excel. I mean, Excel is like Calc. I digress. And then Impress is more like the presentation type apps that they have with Word. Okay, and I have WPS, here, which is the presentation program. This is just like having Word on my computer, but I'm not paying for it. Just because you're not paying for, that's another thing too. Because you're not paying for these programs to use them in Linux, doesn't mean that you just go along your daily lives and not pay for them. I mean, give back to these guys. I mean, if you can, donate $10. Donate $5. I'm so sure some of you guys who are going to be viewing this video probably stop by Starbucks and get a coffee. A cup of coffee at Starbucks is like $5 for crying out loud. If you could spend $5 on a cup of coffee every day, you could donate to one of these applications of your choice. Just donate to them. Go to the main site and donate something. Keep these guys going. I mean, that's what it's about. You have the freedom. I mean, $10 for crying out loud. You're donating $10, which is, it's not like paying for the product and having a license, but donating the money to them to keep them going. It's I don't know how to explain it, but I can't find the words for it. Rather than having to pay $150 for a piece of software and rely on that proprietary source to develop and patch and send you updates for any discrepancies you're having with the software, sometimes are few and far between, or it doesn't get patched at all. And when it comes to these open source programs here, I mean, sometimes you get a patch within a week, sometimes in that day. If there's a security patch, you might get that security patch 2 or 3 days, 24 hours from the time that you read somewhere that there was some kind of security situation with any of these Office sources here. And so that you guys can see the difference, I'm going to open both of them. And it's already open on my secondary screen. I just that's why it's not showing up, because I opened it over there earlier, so I already got that. So let me open the WPS so that you could see the differences, right? Let me minimize my ugly mug for a sec. Look, there's a categorical difference as far as, let me just snap this to one side of the screen, snap this to the other. There's a difference here in the way that the tool functions. This has tabs like you do in Microsoft Office. This the LibreOffice doesn't have that feature. So if you're somebody who's accustomed to using that Windows Office like, and you want to have that Windows Office like feel, get WPS. It has a lot of the same functionality and tools, and the way that it works it's similar. You have a lot of the same functionalities with LibreOffice that you would in Word, excluding some features, but for the most part you could get pretty much everything that you need to get done. As far as reading PDF files and stuff like that, that's a no-brainer in Linux. It's already set up for you to do that. As far as being able to when it comes to editing PDF files, like sometimes you'll get a PDF file that you get via email, you import that file to your system, and using LibreOffice Draw, you can edit that PDF file. And from my understanding and my recollection, even recently, that is still not a feature with Word. Everything, if these options here you're still not in favor of, you can still use Office 360 on Linux. I mean, it pains me to say that, but it's a possibility. If you need to have Office 360, it's web based, so you can install your Linux operating system of choice and be able to function still as a business if that is a tool that you need. All right, I guess that was case number 3. But point number 4, video editing. Video editing is still something that has its quirks when it comes to Linux. Kdenlive, to me, is a feature-rich tool that is comparable to Sony Vegas. Yep, I said it. It is comparable to Sony Vegas. If you don't believe me, you could always download it for free and try it yourself. And for those people who don't have the patience to utilize the Kdenlive tool, and if you don't have the patience to download the tool and try to utilize it for a few weeks to get used to it and understand the nuances of it, don't bother, because you will become complacent quickly. And the people who become complacent are usually the ones who are wrong. And Jesus Christ, the motorcycles outside, I apologize for all that. I try to also find days that I could record for you guys without all that background noise, but I live right next to the street, so you'll just have to bear with me. Blender. Blender is also a tool that you could use to edit videos. A lot of people don't know that. And the video editing feature on Blender is robust, even more robust than Sony Vegas. The reason why I say that, because you could also produce three-dimensional objects within the app itself. Render those three-dimensional objects, import it to the video editing function, and proceed doing whatever project you're doing using that one app. That app is also capable of developing 3D animated shorts or films or cartoons. Whatever style that you may choose to develop, you could use with that tool, and it's free. Krita is more like a what's the tool that Photoshop. It's been compared to Photoshop a lot, and there is a, what is his name? Borodante. He does a lot of digital art on YouTube. Here's his channel. He actually did try to use Krita, and he was really happy with it. He had 2 videos that you guys could check out on his channel, and it was interesting to see him try to use this free application, and he actually said himself that he's in favor more so with some of the functionality, that basically a lot of the abilities to actually create your own brushes using this tool, it's even more synonymous than in Adobe Photoshop. He had some rendering issues, but those issues that he had was because he was actually using the DirectX API in his system, and if you run Krita using OpenGL in Windows, because yes, you could even run this in Windows, if you use OpenGL, you will have a more decent and reasonable experience without too many hiccups because it's not perfect. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's a perfect app and yada, yada, yada. I'm not going to set you up for failure and set myself up for failure or any disappointing comments in my comments below. You guys could try these tools out yourself. What's the other one? Inkscape. Oh wow, that's another one too. Inkscape is, oh man, where is he? I have another channel that I've been frequenting. This guy does nothing but tutorials on. Here we go. His name is Nick Saporito. Here we go. He uses Ubuntu. Yeah. He uses Ubuntu on all of his videos when he does editing on all the logos that you see display behind his little image he has up here on the top of his channel. Every last one of them was developed, designed, rendered in Ubuntu. All of these sweet digital components that you see here, I mean images, not components. All these sweet digital images that you see here, yes, Ubuntu. Linux is ready for production. Short story. The more recent movie of Lord of the Rings, the last, was it The Lord of the Rings? I digress. The Hobbit movies, all three of them were rendered using Linux. Blender, and I think that the distro of choice that they were using is Red Hat. Fedora Red Hat. But they're using the older version of Fedora because its stability is good. The more recent iterations of Fedora has been a debacle. So, yeah. Anyway, I've been using Linux now for a number of years. And I don't have an immediate need to switch back to Windows. I've been tempted a few times, but it was only related to gaming. I don't have the time to game that much, so I'm not going to make that investment. I'm sticking with Linux. And as far as my fifth point for the reason why I switched to Linux is that the operating system itself, it does not use a lot of the the system's capabilities. I have a robust enough machine. Give or take, the processor is quite old. It's a 6100 AMD CPU. It's a 6-core CPU. And I have 16 gigs of DDR3 memory. I have it slightly overclocked to 1748 megahertz. And my GTX 760 GPU. It's good enough for what I need it for, but I'm kind of pining to upgrade. I want to upgrade real bad. Yeah, the system resources isn't abused like with Windows. For instance, especially on hard drives, when you install Windows, no apps installed, no updates, no upgrades. Windows utilizes more than 40 gigs of your hard drive space. So if you have a 60 gig SSD or M.2, 2/3 of it is gone just for the operating system. that sucks. With Linux, when I did a fresh install of this version of Ubuntu, this is Ubuntu 16.04. I did do a upgrade on my kernel, so I think my kernel right now is 4.4.8, I believe it is. I'm not going to go into all that right now. But anyway, after doing a fresh install of Ubuntu Linux on my hard drive, 6 gigs was occupied on my drive. 6 upgrades, updates, and the majority of apps that I actually use day to day. 6 gigs. Not even 25% of the install of Windows. So you get to take more advantage of your hardware. The way I see it, even as a basic user, you take more advantage of your hardware than you do with Windows. I don't care what anybody will jump into the comments below and comment away and tell me why I'm wrong. The only aspect of hardware, or the only hardware component on your computer that is better utilized in Windows, is the graphics card. I could overclock my CPU in Linux. I could actually overclock my graphics card if I wanted to. I can overclock it. But the accessibility to doing stuff like that, it's more accessible in Windows. It's more accessible in Windows. I give them that. But as far as being able to utilize my computer to the fullest extent, I'd rather to use Linux. I have a laptop that I've showed in one of my videos in the past, Lenovo 261. That laptop is where I started my venture into Linux. And it's been an experience since then. It's had its ups and downs, but once I got used to using the operating system, I don't feel the need to go back. I honestly don't. I have a computer that I built for the kids here. It's running Linux. My laptop is running Linux. My desktop is running Linux. My Meteor Center desktop in the bedroom is running Linux. I have no Windows products in my household. If it does have a Windows logo on it, it's going to be running Linux. If possible, it's going to run Linux. So that's pretty much the end of my rant. If you guys have survived to the end, which is now, I appreciate you guys sticking around and listening to me rant about what I ranted about. So, I've said this in the past and I'll say it again. Love your Linux. Enjoy your Linux. Peace out.